Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ha, ha, ha. We up in here. Alrighty, sending out the notification. We're on time late, which I hate, but it is what it is. We'll kick off here in about a minute. I'll give it time to get that notification out to all who might be interested in joining. Share this out. Do a watch. I do believe it's called Watch Party on your page. Let's talk about some things. Let's chat. Then we'll kick off in a little bit. I want to give it a chance to let everybody know we're here. Good evening to you. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Alrighty. Now I'm not one for a lot of delay, so this will get recorded onto my page, and so you'll be able to have access to it at your leisure. Let's get cracking. People kind of come on as they do, and that's just typical of these types of things. Transition. You see a lot of stuff out there about change, transition, leveling up. There's all kind of words that people use. I threw some synonyms in our write-up for this week, if you saw the post. So, I mean, you know, there's all kind of ways we can identify this change, transition. You know me. Let's get right at it. The first thing we have to acknowledge is what we all know, and that is we all go through transition. There is no such thing as anyone avoiding it because you were born. You transitioned from your mother's womb on to being autonomous from her, and it just goes on from there. You go through the growing pains. So everyone has gone through transition. Everyone on my page has, because I don't have anyone who's an infant on my page. I don't have a pre-adolescent on my page. So we've all gone through transition. By the time I don't remember the statistics anymore. I think 25 years old. Most people, I like to go 35 just to be safe. Most people have gone through at least one, what they classify as a major relationship. So you've gone through more than just the physical growing pain transitions. I want to talk a little bit deeper than that, for sure. But I wanted to get this into the broadcast. So let me read it. Transition, as we defined it, a passage from one stage, obviously like growing up, one state, subject, or place to another. From one place, subject, stage, state to another. And here's some of the synonyms: change, shift, transformation, adjustment, alteration, reconstruction, revamping, etc., etc. There's a lot of words there, and each I picked those words kind of intentionally. I'll be honest, but I'll get to that in a minute, because they kind of suggest different levels or types of transitioning. Transition is a bit broader word, and change is a bit, I think, misused or misunderstood in some cases. So let's not use that. But transition is good. I think it's general enough to be able to get into some specifics. And I don't excuse me. I don't necessarily intend to try to address per se specific life transitions. I'll probably share mine as examples. Maybe a few people that I know without names that I'm familiar with. But if you want me to talk about some specific transition in and out of a relationship, that kind of thing, just let me know in the comments. But I don't plan to do that unless I'm just referring to myself. So the first thing out of the box is to understand transition, of course, as we've already stated, is something we all are going to go through. Period. The next point, and I think we don't even have to deal anymore with that. Here's the next point, and when it starts getting interesting. The next point about transition, and I did mention this in the write-up, I hope you saw it, and that is, and I found this fascinating as I just do a little research. Gave you research for this? Yes. I don't like to just talk without some background. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Transition, change, alteration, transformation is not about good or bad. And I want to camp here for a second because I understand positivity. I understand not wanting to deal with anything. I did a whole 3 broadcast on emotion. Hopefully you've caught that, and that'll help you understand what I mean. So I don't have to go back through any of that per se. But what I found fascinating about transition is that in my own life and just in general, it's not an issue of good or bad. It doesn't matter if I speak or you speak exclusively of good transitions. Yes, yes. See, and I'm doing this because I think some of us are really struggling, especially after what we just went through in 2020 or 2020, with some of the more negative transitions. And I wonder to myself, and again, you know me, I like to put my foot all the way up to my neck in these things. So I'm hoping to stir some of you. Again, this is what I do. This is what I come on here on Thursdays to do. I want to stir you to think that maybe what you classified as a negative transition, what if it wasn't a negative transition? Now, I'm going to go for the jugular. You know me. For example, death. 500,000 people, I think we've hit that now. And just dealing with COVID, not talking about heart attacks, not talking about strokes, car accidents, anything else. I think we are at the number of 500,000. As you know, I did end up with COVID-19. Roughly, I counted, I believe yesterday, at least 12 of the individuals who attend where I worship. And I'm associate pastor also called, including the pastor, now his wife. Pastor just got over it. His wife is now dealing with it. So we had quite a few of us who dealt with COVID directly. Of course, as a pastor, I get a lot of prayer requests for people who have dealt with COVID directly or indirectly. And of course, one of the fearful realities of getting that particular virus is the transition of death, going from one state of life, in this case, to another, which is for us, dead, or as we would see it. So that's about the biggest transition you can imagine from beyond birth. And that's the transition of death. You can't really get any other transition or change or level change than that. And obviously, I'm a Christian, if that's not pretty clear. And so I see that transition. I had a conversation with a young lady, which is why I gave some thought to talking about this. I've already did a thing on death. I did a thing on grief. So I'm not going back to that. But stay with me for a minute. And I want you to think about this. Because transition is neither good or bad. Ultimately, transition is simply going from one place, stage, subject, a state to another. It's just going from where you were or what you were to something else or to being something else. That's it. Even if we want to think about the word in a positive light, and some, of course, are considering it from probably a historical, life history standpoint as negative, the reality of it is classifying change as negative or positive can have a major, major impact. Here we go. On how we deal with the new state, stage, subject, place, or place. If we mentally classify the transition as negative, if we interpret that whatever transition we're going through is potentially negative. In my community, we call it the shoe drop. Fired from a job. Oh, negative. Especially if the ideal job, the job you've always wanted, it's negative. Here's the problem. You go from a state of being employed to a state of unemployment. Whether you classify that as negative or positive, and I could see why you would say it's negative, the reality of it is you have a situation of unemployment and you have to answer the new state. So that we're going to have a talk about transition and why we might classify transition as negative. Ready? Here we go. Share this out now. Watch party. One of the reasons why I consider transition negative is because I don't always get to choose it. Anybody going to talk back to me? Agree, disagree? That's one of the reasons why I consider transition a difficult thing, because I don't always get to choose my transitions. I don't get to choose them. I don't always get to decide my transitions. Let's talk plain for a second here. And if we're honest and do a quick assessment, roll back through your life. Now, if you're, you really, 100 years old, you might not want to do that. We don't got that kind of time. And if you are 100, do about 50 years. And for those of us who are of age, let's say 60 and 60 down, go back to 30. If you're in your 30s, go back to 18, right? And walk up and think real quick. Here's the question I want you to answer as you're considering. How many of the transitions, small or great, negative or positive, not really the issue yet, did you control? You don't control the transition of getting older. Now you can work out like a crazy person. True that. But it doesn't change the fact that you are going to age. You can age gracefully. Did you know that the whole point of that phrase, aging gracefully, is trying to put a positive light on the transition of aging? Did you know that? Think about it. Why do some say aging gracefully? Now, talking about gray hairs, I understand the particulars typically. But let's be real. Saying aging gracefully is in acknowledgement of the fact you're going to age. It doesn't matter what you do. Every day you live, you are older. You are a day older, an hour older, a minute older, a second older. That's a transition, listen, you do not control. You may look good for your age. It doesn't change the fact that for your age, you may be a 60-year-old looking like a 30-year-old, but it doesn't change the fact that you are 60. And given a reasonable amount of time, even in the greatest of health, the effects of your age is going to kick in. Do everything. I'm not discouraging for you to work out and eat well. By all means, do that. I do that. I do both of those things and take vitamins and supplements due to high blood pressure and hypertension. So I am not knocking those things. But you are doing those things in full view of the fact that you are, without your choice, transitioning. Without our choice, we are transitioning. We are changing every day, because we are a day older. We are going from one age to another age every year. We celebrate that to whatever extent, and I'm saying that in light of the fact this is February, and I will be deemed 47, that I will have completed my 47th year and start working on year 48. Doesn't matter what I do. The gray hairs, and the creaky bones tell me that no matter what I'm doing, I'm aging. I am transitioning. In fact, I turned 40 and hey, Gabe, you need to get to the doctor, man. Get your colon checked, to get all of this checked. Doesn't matter how good a shape I'm in. Hey, get your colon checked. My colon cannot be affected by me lifting weights or running or the colon being cleansed is a part of the reality of 40 years plus now of walking around on the earth. There are very healthy people who died in 2020, not of COVID necessarily 19, but a brain aneurysm or a car accident. Aging is a transition that is going to happen. And since no one is still alive from day one of this earth, i.e. Adam and Eve, everyone transitions and eventually tastes death in some form. Or they leave this realm, this plane. So transition, one of the reasons why transition can be classified as negative by some, maybe by many, is, and I'm just talking in general, is because we don't get to have a say on all the transitions we go through in this life. We don't get to pick and choose them all the time. And if you go back in your mind, you will find maybe most of the transitions, I suspect for most of us, we didn't pick them. Not only do we not get to pick the transitions we want to go through, most of the time, we don't get to pick when we go through them. We don't always get to decide. When you turn 18, you are classified in most societies as an adult, whether you're ready for it or not. The United States of America says you are grown. And in some nations, it's younger than that. And in some families, it's younger than 18. Some circumstances that a child is being born into right now, that child, by the time they're 12, 13, 14 years old, if they have younger siblings before that's all said and done, they may be having to act like a grown man or woman, and they're merely 12, 13. And even though they cannot vote and they cannot do a myriad of things, the family constitution, the community that they're in, is going to require them to behave like a grown man or woman, and they are teenagers. I have met many in my lifetime who said, Gabe, I was driving by. I was already working a job by. I was already smoking by. I was drinking by. I was out there doing this, that, and the other, and I wasn't even anywhere near 18. And some of that transition into pre-adulthood, if you will, came because of I'm not here to talk about anybody's mom or dad or circumstance or upbringing. If you want to share that with me, you can. My messenger is open to you. But all I'm simply saying is, not only do we not always get to choose the things that we have to change and transition in, that calls for some change from one state, status, stage, subject, place to another, but the timing, ideally, not really 18, come on, let's be honest, really more like 21. And I don't know why we say 21, really 22, because if you go to 4-year college, really more like 22. And some, and I see a dear friend who's in the psychology business, will tell you 25. And some never get through adolescence, even though they are 40 and 50 and 60 and 70. They never grow out of it due to particular situations they face. Transition can be classified as hard, one, because we don't always get to choose those transitions. We don't always get to choose what things you want to change or transition or alter. You don't always get to choose it. And two, you don't always get to choose the timing. The timing. You don't get to choose. You don't mind that something is going to change, but you don't get to choose the timing. You don't get to choose the timing on when your mom dies. You don't get to choose the timing on when your best friend leaves. You don't get to choose the timing. You suspect that they might go because they're talking that way, but then all of a sudden, girl, I'm gone. This is your ace boon coon, they used to say when I was a kid. And now that person has left your life. They got married and they got so heavily involved with their husband or wife, you didn't expect to lose that relationship. And now you have to transition. Maybe you were a couple, right? You and your husband or your wife, and you guys had friends who were couples, and then one of them divorced and you lost your friend because they feel like a third wheel. But if you guys were really friends, stop that badness. There are seasons and times in our lives when we are extremely close to people, and because of transitions. So the last thing, maybe it's the last thing that I feel causes me to think of transitions as sometimes negative is because of what you can lose. And maybe that's the biggest one for us all. It's not just simply we can't always choose the thing that we transition in. We can't always choose the timing. We can't always choose the results. And I think for most of us, if we're honest, that's the biggest thing. When my father was laying in the hospital bed at St. Agnes Hospital in Fresno, California, many years ago, having had a near miss with cancer, the reality of it is I'm sitting there, and in a selfish way, I'll say it, I'm thinking I wasn't ready for him to go. I wasn't ready to go through the transition of not having my father. I wasn't ready for that transition. Sound familiar? That's a change. That's a change in state. From my father is very much alive to he's not alive. My mother was very much alive to she's not alive. And some will tell you, of course, because I'm a pastor, I know this directly, that that's a serious change for them. And they can transition into a place of what my father calls a place of permanent or ongoing grief, where they spend their life in a place of grief. They transition into grief and they never transition out of it. Wow, Gabe, you went deeper than I thought you would. Yeah, I know. Why do you think I do these things? Why do you think I do these subjects? To try to be deep? No, because I know these are things that we go through. These are things that we are dealing with. Most of us are not ready for the transitions or the transitioning of others, which is, I would say, 3A or 3B. It's not just the results, but we're not also, I'll make it number 4, we're not ready for the transition, other people's transitions. Any empty nesters watching me? When you knew your kids were going to graduate from high school, you knew the time would come, or at least that's what you thought and you planned in your mind. Anyone have a child? Don't necessarily say it to me or on this broadcast, but anyone have a child who left home before 18? Due to whatever reasons, that's why I don't want you to talk about it, but just think about it. Anyone ever or know a niece or a nephew or a grandchild who you see is about to transition because of maybe some bad choices? They're about to transition into adult life, and they're not ready, and so that their transition is having an impact on you, whether you want to admit it or not, because you're trying not to be selfish. Well, tonight, be selfish. Be honest with me. Be honest with yourself. There are not just your transitions. Let's pile on. Let's add on the transitions of others. The transitions of others. And if you are anything like me, where people rely on you for emotional, mental, physical support, and in some cases financial support, some people go out and jump into situations. How about quit their job and come calling you because they can't pay a bill? So they went through a transition by choice, and now that has caused your finances to get taxed. So now you're going through an economic transition that was not by your choice. Are you seeing how this comes together now? Can you see how big transitioning is? Have you ever even stopped to imagine? It's not just, do I want to change jobs? Do I want to go back to school? Those are intentional transitions. I could do a whole broadcast on that. Those are the ones that we choose. But I want to focus on the ones we don't get to choose. I want to focus on the ones when you go to the doctor to get your pap smear, your mammogram, or get your checkups, whatever you want to call it, and you go in and they say, please have a seat. Yes, doc, what's wrong? Guess what? Unfortunately, we found cancer. Do you know that's a transition? Wait a minute, Gabe, are you implying transitions are not just physical? Ding, 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 ding. So let's back up and let's deal with the expanse, if nature of transitions. Transitions are mental. Transitions are emotional. Transitions are physical. Transitions are financial. Transitions are relational. Ever been through a divorce? Ever gotten married? Transitions are, again, empty nesting. Those are relational transitions. Ever gone through social transitions from being a wallflower to a butterfly? There are social transitions. There are all kinds of transitions. There are, of course, economic transitions. There are employment transitions, changing jobs. There's educational transitions, achieving higher levels of education. And they're all very unique to themselves. But the one thing true about all of them is the fact that you go from one place, stage, state, subject to another. That's the one thing is true. Something changes. Something is altered. That's the one thing that's true. Something is no longer what it was when you started. Mental, emotional transitions can be daunting. I was going to do this broadcast this particular week on postpartum depression, trauma and things of that nature. Maybe I'll still do that. But that's I don't want to get too deep into that. I said I don't want to into any particular transition, but let's just touch it a little bit. Trauma is one of those transitions that, again, we don't get to choose. We don't get to choose the transition that comes because of trauma. From a loved one suddenly passing away to, I live here in the South, to a storm coming through and blowing away a person's life, rain, sleet, snow, destroying weather, destroying their lives, to a spouse passing, to a divorce, or a person just up and leaving the relationship completely, to children just kind of flying off the handle. Maybe they were showing signs, but you didn't see it, or, and then all of a sudden they just, one day they don't show up. And you get a call a week later, I'm staying with a girlfriend, I'm staying with a boyfriend, I'm not coming back home, I hate you. That's a transition. That's an emotional transition. That's a physical transition. That's an economic potential transition, especially if they eventually announce there's going to be a grandchild. That's a transition that you don't always get to choose, right? For those of you who are grandmothers and grandfathers, you don't get to choose that transition. You can call yourself Mead Mom and Glam Mom and all the You call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, but when your child comes of age, hopefully all the way to 18 at least, if they come of age and they have a child, whether they come of age or not, they go out and get pregnant, or they go out and get someone pregnant, whether you like it or not, you have just become, not by your choice, a grandparent. Period. That's it. You are officially a grandparent, period. You have more than one child, and one of your children has a child, the other sibling is now an aunt or uncle, period. Doesn't matter. If you have more than one child, you watched your family grow, and you saw your oldest child, who was an only child, become the oldest child. That's a transition. And sometimes a very difficult one. I won't get into that. Unless you want me to, I won't get into that. Some are still struggling with that, and your kids are grown. Your kids are of age, and they still struggling. You love me more. You love them more than you love me. Boy, you 50. And your brother 51. Shut up and get out of my face. They never fully transitioned. Believe it or not, they never fully transitioned. They're still talking about, and when I was a kid, you gave them 4 pieces of bacon, and I only got 2. And I'm laughing at that, but anyway, that was my sister. Bless her heart. Love you. Love you in case you watch this. Love you. So you got, I want you to think about this, and we haven't used this word in a while, but I want you to really think about what I'm saying. So it's not just, Gabe, you done messed me up because you were talking about my transitions, and I'm still trying to deal with that. And then you added my kids' transitions, you added my spouse's transitions, you added my parents' transitions, my grandparents' transitions, my co-workers' transitions. The word that I was using quite a bit last year, at the end of last year, was community. Let me just go ahead and drop the whole bomb on you. Boom! We don't just live in a vacuum, ladies and gentlemen. We're not just dealing with our transitions, and many of them, as I've already stated, we don't even get to choose them. We're dealing with the transitions, watch this, of every person in our community. Every person in our community are going to go through transitions, are going through transitions, have been through transitions, and some of their transitions are impacting yours. Again, negative or positive is not really my point. I'm pointing out some that may be classified as negative because I want you to understand the expanse of what I'm saying. So if you live by yourself and you go through transitions, okay, that's one thing. But if you live with one other person other than you, now you just doubled the transitions. Do you understand what I'm saying? You just doubled the transitions. What if you have 3 people? You just quadruple the transitions you are going to go through. I'm not saying kick anybody out your house. I'm saying when you get off this broadcast, you need to look at the people in your house and understand they are going through your transitions as well. Gabe, but I don't tell them my business. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can keep every ounce of your life private. If they live in the house with you, they are experiencing your transition. Let me give you one example, right? My father was identified as having high blood pressure, or at least he was on the verge of it. He was, I forgot what they used, the word. He was a candidate, or however they say it, for high blood pressure and hypertension. Many years ago, I was still a teenager. It's been many years ago. Many moons, as they say. I was a salt lover at that time. I put salt on just about everything. I mean, I probably would have put it on cereal if it was... I ain't gonna lie, I love salt at the time. I love salt. And I mean the blue container, I love straight up salt. Not all this supplemental salt and sea salt and all that other salt. No, straight salt. I ate salt and hot sauce. So salt and hot sauce. I'd tear it up. I put it on anything and everything. Salt and hot sauce. It give me some salt and hot sauce. Well, my mother comes in, and she didn't say nothing to us. Of course, we're, teenage kids, whatever. She walked in, pulled the salt and all that kind of product out of the cabinet and proceeded to throw it away. I'm sitting in the kitchen at the time she did that. I just went through a transition I didn't choose. Everybody understand my pain? I'm still a little salty. Just kidding. So the reality of it is, that's a long time ago. It's 30 years ago at least. So the reality of it is, my father was identified as having high blood pressure, and because of that, we all went through a change. We all went through a transition. Suddenly, salt being removed from my diet because of what somebody else in the household was dealing with. Now that's a bit of a funny, it wasn't funny to me then, but that's a bit of a funny example, but it's a real life example. It's a real life example. There's some people right now, and don't identify yourself, who are probably watching me right now. And the doctor said, you need to change your diet. And you live with people, and you suspect that if you change your diet in the manner in which the doctor is suggesting, you might have a few people in your home that love you. They're not going to be very happy about the suggested diet that the doctor is telling you. You may have to transition the entire home just so you can stay focused on the diet you need. Let me take that one a little further. I like that one. You have a particular diet because you're either trying to lose weight or, you got some health concerns. That would be me. I got some health concerns. So when the holidays roll around, you know that there's certain foods that mama, grandma, wife, somebody gonna cook. And you would like to eat your healthy portion. But you've been given a report from the doctor that says you need to make a transition. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? Let me preach for a moment. And you need to stop eating that food. Lord. Anyway, so you need to stop. No, not play around with it. Not, cheat days. All that little goofy stuff we do, cheat days. No, you need to let that go. You need to let it go completely. That's a transition. That's a alteration. You at a stage where you need to stop eating. What do you mean? Again, I told you I'll use me. I'm starting to discover that I'm going to have to ease up on some of the red stuff, hot sauce in particular. I thought I was doing all right with Louisiana hot sauce. Doing all right because it's not hot. I thought it was just the hot stuff. I had some spaghetti that it was delicious. I ate a pretty good healthy portion about a month ago. It didn't agree with me. That red stuff. I had some hot sauce. I like to eat hot sauce, on a couple of things. As you've seen my pictures, you see a little hot sauce sprinkle on it. I have to ease up. Why? I'm transitioning. I didn't choose it. I have to transition. I have to, and diet, Gabe, leave diet alone, boy. Don't you mess with diet. No, I'm going to mess with diet. I'm going to mess with diet. I got gray hairs. You can't tell me now. I'm getting old now. I can talk about it if I want to. Diet is one of those particular things that we have some choice in, some say in. But the reality of it is, I know I get an amen in there somewhere. But the reality of it is, some of us have chosen, Gabe, you're going to get in trouble, I know. But some of us have chosen not to choose. I'm almost done. I turned the corner. Did you catch it? Some of us know that there are transitions that we are going through. As a matter of fact, some of us know, and I don't want to sound like I'm ministering, even though I may sound like that. I'm not trying to do that. Some of us have gone through some actual transitions. Weight gain. Let the church say amen. I've gone through a weight gain issue. I'm working on getting it off. There you go. Some of us we know. You trying to avoid going, listen to me, let me get serious here before I get off here. Some of us are literally avoiding things like doctor appointments. We don't want to call our insurance companies. We don't want to get life insurance policies because we think that we have to, by doing that, we're signing our death certificate. Yet we know we're aging. We know we don't have the full capacity of our limbs like we did when we were previous decades. Let's just be real. And we're avoiding dealing with, dealing with the truth of the transitions that we have determined to be negative. I know you missed it. Let me do it again. Some of us are literally desperately trying to avoid. We're dressing a certain way, trying to act like it ain't what it used to be, squeezing into things that we know we have to take a deep breath because we don't want to deal with the truth that there has been a change, an alteration, a transition. Some of those things we can laugh at. We can laugh at some of them. But some of them, my dear Facebook family, my dear Facebook community, we shouldn't laugh at them. We shouldn't throw our hands up at them and just say, well, I give up. We need to address them. We need to stop and realize that maybe we didn't want that change. We didn't want that alteration. We didn't want to have to reconstruct our lives. But we must. Oh, bless your heart, son. Yeah, you in that prime choice, prime bad situation. Some of us need to, and maybe all of us in some extent or another, we're going to have to face the fact, let's start with us, that we are changing. And these transitions are not all by choice. I'm not going back through that. And we need to embrace those transitions so that we can live in light of those transitions. For example, some people's eyes are getting bad. Some people's eyes are getting bad, but they won't get no glasses because they're too handsome. They're too beautiful. They're too attractive. Maybe they grew up in an era where they were told that 4 eyes means you're a geek or a nerd. Put them glasses on. Transition. Put them on. Nope, I'm too cute. I'm too fabulous to put on the glasses. Put the glasses on. But we don't want to transition, and we're still getting behind the wheel. See how serious that is? Well, I don't have to wear them all the time. I'm just getting absent-minded. Boy, where that book? It's right in front of you. Would you put your glasses on? I don't need no glasses. You don't? You couldn't see it right in front of you? Yeah. I just don't want to get old. I just don't want to get old. You're going to get old. There is no choice. The only way you won't get any older is to die. It's a transition we are all going to go through. And we are going through. I am 22 days away from 47. There's nothing I can do to stop 47 from coming other than cease to be, which I'm not going to kill myself. So 47, bring it on. And if something comes with the year 47, like I got to wear glasses, I'm going to get some glasses and I'm going to put it on my darn face. And I'm going to do my best to look as suave and debonair as I can. Maybe you've gained some weight and you just refuse. And you keep telling yourself, I'm going to go to the gym or I'm going to start walking when the weather gets good. And you keep squeezing into what used to be loose jeans, which are now skinny jeans. And that shirt whose button, I had a shirt like that, I had to get rid of it. Whose shirt is, the button is screaming, please don't put me on. At least don't button me. Well, you in the middle, I got to button you. I got to button you. Now, I'm trying to keep it light, but there's some, exactly. There are some changes, there's some transitions, my brothers and sisters, that's going to come. It doesn't matter if you want them to come or not. Let's get more serious. If your parents are still alive, bless you, by the way. But guess what? If life just keeps trucking along, at some point there's going to be a transitioning. I'll leave it right there. And we need to prepare ourselves for those transitionings. We shouldn't be shocked when the time comes that we have to receive. No, you're going to feel the grief behind their transitioning, but they're going to transition. And if you don't prepare yourself for the transitioning, and it might be an uncle. It don't have to be your parents. It might be an uncle, or auntie, a great aunt, or great uncle. At some point or another, Big Mama is going to go. And it's not just them transitioning in terms of passing on to the next life. It also may mean, watch this one, I love this one. You may have to step up to the plate to take their place in terms of, and some of you have been through this, right? Where now they come to you. Big Mama's gone now, Medea's gone, and they need somewhere to turn. Big Papa's gone, and they need somewhere to turn. And you know it's coming, and you need to prepare for the transitioning. My father said to me 20 plus years ago, easy. He said, yeah, the time's going to come when the family's going to come to you. I just looked at him like, man, don't cuss at me, man. He was right. That was 25 years ago, 24 years, something like that. And sure enough, there was a point as I became more mature and understood the scriptures and all that better, the family, my siblings and others started coming to me, asking me questions and all of that kind of thing. I had to prepare myself up here. Remember mental transitions? As a matter of fact, let's be real. This is where most transitions take place. I know it's nice if you could be 70 years old and look 50. That's cool. Hey, God bless you. God bless you. But you don't want to necessarily act out of your age necessarily. And being 70 don't mean a prude. I've met a lot of 70-year-old people who are refreshing and lively. And I know some 20-year-olds, you need to give them some prune juice or something. I'm just being honest with you. They 25 and they act like they 72. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. And I don't mean maturity. I just mean they old in their attitude. They need a transition. They need some vitamins or something. Sorry. In other words, my point is, and I'm done, is we have got to embrace transition, whether you interpret it to be negative or positive. Why, Gabe? Why? Why are you insisting that? Because they're going to come, one. They're going to come when they come, two. And they're going to bring the results they bring, three. I think that's all the ones we covered. They're going to come, period. Nothing we can do. They're going to come when they come. Can't do anything with that either. Or you might be able to have some influence on it, right? And then number three, the results of those transitions. Some of them small, some of them huge. You're going to have to deal with it. I'm going to have to deal with it. And then let me add that one piece that we added before. Let me encourage you to recognize not just your transitions, the transitions of everyone in your community, no matter how much you know them. I've lived in an apartment, quickly and I'm done. I lived in an apartment a few different times in my life. And I never really thought about how much people moving in and out of the apartment affected my thinking. One of the things that I thought about, and I live in a duplex now. I'm in my own house, but it's a duplex. It's connected. And I've been here over 2 years, and I've had 1, 2, 3, now the fourth tenant who's moved in next door. Very different people. When I moved in, it was a young man, probably in his 20s. I moved in October 2018. He moved out in November. And about a month or so later, a brother and sister with a little guy moved in. They were there about a year. And then after that, a family, not really kind of sure of the makeups. It looked like some young men, a young lady, and I believe her husband. Then maybe been some teen nephews or something like that. They moved in, and they weren't there long. They moved out, but left one of the young men behind, and he lived there for about a month or so. He didn't think, I guess he had to pay rent or something. And then he moved out. He actually just moved on the other side next to the other duplex. And now a lady lives there, single lady who lives there, of age. I don't know how old she is, but she looks like she's of age. So I've had 3 or 4 different people who've moved in, and I never thought about other people's transitions. I've moved several times in my lifetime. I've never given any thought to somebody else's transition. The reason why it came to me, and I thought about the times in apartments, is because, oh, absolutely. My brother, I see what you're saying. The reason why I thought about it is because, in part, because most of the people who lived there smoked except the brother and sister. They were the only ones who didn't smoke. And I'm not favorable of smoke inhalation. I got a son with asthma. And so, unfortunately, it does pass through the vents and things like that. So that those transition, of course, when nobody's lived there, there's been pockets of time no one's lived there. It's very peaceful. There's no noise on the other side. There's nothing going on. And it's just me and my son. And I realized, as simple as that example is, Gabe, what are you getting at? Other people's lives have an impact, other people's transitions. She went through a transition. She moved from wherever she was living here. Her transition is having some measure of impact on me. Some measure, it may be a small measure of impact, but some measure all the same. I want you to understand before I'm done that we cannot live our lives, again, with blinders on to believe that other people's transitions don't have an impact on us. That other people's interactions with the changes that come, and again, there's the changes we choose, but there are many changes, many alterations, many adjustments we have to make that we don't get to choose. Can you imagine a child who is heavily reliant on their parent, and then their parent gets ill? My parents seldom ever got sick. I mean, just be honest with you. They probably did get sick, but we just didn't know it. And then my mother had a surgery. Women, you know obviously what that surgery is without me saying it. And she was gone for just a few days. But those few days, I was a teenager, those few days when she went to have the surgery, it really made me think for a minute. Like, She cooks the meals and all of this kind of stuff. We were cleaning by that point, but she was the cook. She was the one who helped us with homework or whatever the case may be, and she was gone for those few days, just a few days. I hadn't thought about that until I got ready to do this broadcast, and it really hit me that other people's transitions, and I am intentionally ending with this. I don't want us just to be self-centered and focus on our transitions, though it's a lot of them and we need to pay attention. I also want us to be conscientious about the transitionings of others, especially the traumatic ones, especially the ones that they don't plan for. And 2021 is bringing some transitions for a lot of people. People's lives transition into a very dark space in 2020, and it's not getting better. They are actually transitioning into a deeper hole. And this is not much that they can do. And we have to be, watch this now, we have to be extremely careful how we assess them, how we judge them. Oh, Gabe, I don't judge. Yes, you do. I use the word judge because I want people to get over themselves. The word assess is the same word. You try to tell me you don't assess? You don't give an assessment? You assess or judge all the time. Yeah, but the Bible says don't judge. That word there is dealing with don't send anybody to hell. That's what that word in particular is dealing with. But we all judge. We all assess. When you go buy bread, you assess, unless you have your favorite, you assess what bread you want to buy based on your economic situation. You are assessing or judging all the time. So get over ourselves already. We got to get over some things. We done heard words and we applied a definition to it that's not altogether what the definition is, and it's affecting our lives. Some of us have almost stopped in some cases because we're so afraid of judging or whatever the case may be. We don't want to be we want to be drama free, and then we'll turn on a movie called a drama. What in the world? You want to watch drama, but you want to be drama free anyway. Soapbox done. I want to make sure we understand that there are others who are going to go through transitions, not just our children and grandchildren. Those are kind of obvious transitions. But what about grown people? What about those who are our age? I'm not the only one turning 47 this year. I graduated with 900 people. My graduating class was 900. Which means all of them are transitioning anywhere between the ages of 46 to 48. We're all transitioning. And I got a lot of them on my Facebook page. Some of them have passed away. They transitioned already into the next life. And we pray they were Christian. They've transitioned already. They're done. They have no more transitions to go. So I'm not the only one who's going to have a birthday. I'm not the only one who's going through transitions. I'm here doing this broadcast tonight because you have transitions. Because you are going through changes. Whether you chose them or not, whether you consider them to be positive or negative, you are going through changes. And I want to, if I can, bring some sense of understanding, shine a light on the issue of transitioning, life transitioning in particular, and tell you that you can transition. Now, I didn't get into any kind of specific steps or things to do because that would require me to know kind of what you may be talking about. So contact me and we can talk about it. Gabe, do you have any ideas about transitioning if you're in a marriage? Yes, I can give some insight on how to do that and come out of that marriage, grieve the loss of the marriage, and recover. By the way, having gone through divorce myself, not happy about it, but having gone through divorce, you can live on the other side of divorce. And if you're having guilt issues, contact me so we can pray that thing away in the sense of help you understand that God ain't holding that against you for all eternity. You can move past it. That's a transition you can overcome. Trust me. This is year 6 for me. And I'm doing okay. Or as Boyz II Men said, doing just fine. Getting along very well. So understand, you can transition. You can come out of college and transition into education. You can transition from from college into working. You can transition from working into college. There are things out there. Now, I may not be the person to contact for that, but there are things out there you can consider doing. You don't have to go to a 4-year college or a 2-year college. You might get into a 6-month program just to bolster your education. And I don't care how old you are. I don't care how old you are. What I want you to do is see transitions, no matter how bad they may feel and even be, as an opportunity for improvement. Not just improving for you, but improving for others. Gabe, I don't really know if my uncle or my aunt or my mom or dad or one of my children or somebody passing away was a chance for personal improvement. Yes, it is. How dare you, Gabe? Easy, my mouth works. It's called reflection. It's called re-examination. That's why I added the words reconstruction, alteration, adjustments. That's why I added those words. Transformation. That's why I added them. Because when you are going through the transition of losing a loved one, no matter what that loved one is, it is hard. Nobody's here to say it's not hard. Are you crazy? Of course it's hard. And it should be to some extent, depending on how much you love that person and cherish their life. But it doesn't mean that you cannot be intentional, even though you didn't choose it. You can be intentional about how you walk through that transition. Don't tell me you can't. Because if you don't, you will get stuck there in a permanent state of grief. If you don't look for the silver lining, and the silver lining has to be more than just, I love them. It has to be, and who could I become? Am I becoming who that person would have loved to see me be? Am I at the pinnacle of myself? And if you're breathing, unless you are on your deathbed, I venture to say, no, you're not. There is something you can do. Lose 10 pounds, something, anything. Do something to improve your life. Read a book that you've always desired to go. Start walking. Don't let that person pass away and you don't come out better. That makes no sense. Because all that's going to happen is every single year at the time they die, all you're going to do is well up with grief, and you will have nothing in your life to show for it if you don't get active in your transitioning. If you sit on the sideline, there's going to be others who are going to pass away, and it'll pile up, and you don't even want me to say the word, but I'm going to say it. It's called depression. What I'm telling you to do is transition on purpose even when you don't get to choose it. Even though you don't choose the transitions, I'm saying take control of who you are in the midst of the transition and live. Live out the transition. Live it out. My marriage ended. It was not something I wanted, but it ended. And I came out of it on my way into depression. And thank God for my brother. And thank God for those who were praying for me. And thank God I had a son that I knew I needed to keep up myself. Because if I would have went off into depression, I wouldn't have been the father that I needed to be. I couldn't let myself go down. I had to pick myself up and realize that even though this is a transition I did not want, I have a responsibility to more than just myself. It's not a transition I wanted, but I had no room and opportunity to sit around and fold my arms and smolder and cry and boo-hoo all day long. I had to get up and go to work. I had to get up and handle business. I had to pay some bills. And also I had to actually engage people because I was working in a school. There was no way I was going to be able to walk around numb. I had to actually engage people, children, adults, women, as well as men. Even though my marriage ended with my wife, I had to engage women. I had to talk to them. I had to interact with them. Most of the teachers were women. I could not act like, well, I'm just mad at all women or whatever the case may be and go bury myself in my room. I had to get up and get to the business of life. I had to go through the transition that I didn't choose, recognizing my life was not going to end that day, that week, that month, that year. And now we're 6 years out come May 23rd. We're now 6 years out from that. And I have a great relationship with my son's mother. We are friends. My son is in my company. God has brought me through. I'm not saying you can necessarily do it by yourself. My brother was there on the phone. I could call him and pray and do what I needed to do. And I started learning. Gabe, how did you get through it when you couldn't call your brother? Believe it or not, I started learning. I've been in ministry since 19 years old, but I have learned more about God and his word since 2015 than I had known all the years before. I did not take the ending of my marriage to be an excuse to stop being who I was called to be and to become who I was called to become. What are you going to do? You're going to go through transitions and you don't get to choose them all. Are you going to give yourself excuse to stop? Gabe, you just don't understand. Don't tell me what I don't know. You don't know my life. Either you're going to give yourself permission to get up in the midst of transitions that are hard, that are difficult, or you're going to die on the vine. There is no two ways about this. I have been in ministry too long and seen this too many times to not know what I'm talking about. I have been doing this a long time. Please understand, I didn't just start this. And I'm telling you, if you want to stave off depression, and I was right at the border of depression, please hear me. I was kissing depression in the mouth. And thanks to my brother, and of course the Holy Spirit, and God's word, and having to have something to do, and get up. And sometimes you just got to do some constructive stuff. You got to put your hands on some stuff. You got to go build a craft or something. Go to the gym. I don't give a rip. You got to do something positive, hopefully. Take up that hobby that you've been putting off for 10 years or 15 years. Don't sit around. Don't go do nothing destructive. But there are some things in this life that will give you the recharge, the rejuvenation you need. And it ain't always the marriage dying or somebody passing. Sometimes you just fail. You fail a class in school. That, you needed to pass, you was frustrated, you were stressed out, you need to make some adjustments, some transitions. You failed the class, you didn't get the grade you wanted, you're ready to just quit college or whatever altogether. No! Make the adjustments you need to make in your time, make the adjustments, the transitions that you need to make so you can get through the class. I've been there, Gabe, yes. Statistics, I had to take it for my psychology degree. I can't stand statistics. I failed the class. Well, I got a D. And I had to get a B. I had to. So, I went back to the counselor and said, I'm back again. And I got a new counselor, which is what helped. And the counselor said, well, don't take that teacher. I believe he passed away, God rest his soul. No, take this teacher. I was like, now granted, this is how much transition I had to go through. I was taking statistics in the daytime. Didn't pass that one. I had to take the class at night. I passed that one. I had to go to school at night. I'm 18, 19 years old. I wasn't used to that. 19, 20, somewhere in there. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to the idea of going to school at night. I was used to high school, 7:30 to 3:30. I had to go through a transition. Obviously, that was a long time ago. I'm just sharing that with you. Failure comes, but sometimes we need to transition. We need to change our thinking. We need to change our opinions about some things. We need to change our views about some things. You don't even want me to get to start talking about the transitions that God brings. You don't even want me to do that. Because that's a whole nother ball of wax. Because God's going to bring those transitions whether you like it or not. It's his will. When the time came for Jesus to die, he wasn't like, well, could you just give me another 6 months? Are you kidding? No. So understand, I'm just talking about the transitions that we kind of seem to have our hands on. But look, man, transitions are going to come. And so I hope I've said enough to get you at least thinking in the right direction. Now, I do share about me. I don't ask anyone to share about themselves. I'm willing to be transparent about these things. The relationships are healed. We're going forward. We're good. We're great. I'm good. I'm scathed off depression. Good. I'm great. God has been good to me. So please understand. Don't Gabe. Are you? Yes, I'm okay. I'm more than okay, actually. I'm going through another tunnel of transition. It's coming up, and as you go through these things, if you're more proactive in your transitioning, it gives you the confidence for the next thing. I'm going to say this because I'm a Christian. You know, I'm not bashful. I do suggest God. Yeah. Hey, amen, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm actually hoping to go on ahead and be gray, so I don't have to worry about it. Anyway, so the bald head is a choice for me. But you know, it would grow, but I just don't let it grow. The reality of it is, you're going to go through the transitions. So if you take a proactive approach to them, then you get some measure of control in them. Some measure, you don't get to control them all, but you get some sense of control. And a lot of times, that's the real issue. Of all the things that I said, that's the real one. That's the big one. It's that feeling like you're not in control. It's that feeling like you can't grab a hold of something. Have you ever felt that where you're just trying to grab a hold of something emotionally? You're trying to grab a hold of something mentally. You're just trying to get a thought, a clue. You're just trying to grab something. I don't know if you've ever been there where you feel like this transition, this change has you feeling like you're in uncharted waters and you just don't know. I've moved across the country more than once, more than twice. And it's unnerving. Because you don't know what's on the other side of the transitions. You don't know. You don't know. It's the unknown that'll get you. It's the unknown that'll take you out. But I'm telling you, you can survive the unknown. You can survive even losing the hair and going gray. You can survive. Hey, put a wig on, put a toupee on, whatever you got to do. I'm not going there, but you know, for those who feel the need, put on a wig, put on a toupee. Hey, there's man wigs, toupees, I guess is what they call them. Do what you got to do. Okay. Get a bigger belt. I don't know. So, but you can go through transitions. Listen to me. You can do it. You can do it. You can, Gabe, I don't know. You keep telling me I can do it. Yes, I'm going to let you go, but you can survive the transitions of life, especially the ones you don't see coming, especially the ones that are hard, especially the ones that are difficult. One of the easiest ways to deal with cancer is to first acknowledge that the cancer is there, to deal with the fact that your body has cancer in it, that there's a change that took place. You didn't have cancer at one point, you have cancer now, and now let's begin to deal with the fact that the cancer is there. That's a mental transition. That's just one example. I don't want to give too many. I'm done. So that being said, I hope this is a benefit to you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I hope this has been a benefit. Share it out. Get as many eyes in front of it as you can. Tag your people in it. You got to share it, I believe, on your page, and then tag people in it and encourage them to watch it. I'm so deep with this stuff, man. I'd be like, have somebody watch it with you and go over the points with them and talk about it. Talk openly. I hope that these broadcasts on Thursday give you the ability to be able to talk openly to yourself and to others in your community. That's why I craft them this way on purpose. I think this way, by the way, but I craft them so that you can really use these as talking points. You don't have to use the whole video. Just watch. I try to say all this stuff up front in the beginning, so you can go through the first 20 minutes and get the points. I give examples as we go and flush some things out. But use these videos as talking points. We talked about communication. We did several videos on communication. We've done several. We did stuff on death and grieving and all of that kind of thing. Use these videos as talking points, especially with younger people. Especially with younger people. because it'll get them thinking. Okay, this is what mom is thinking. This is what dad is thinking. This is what grandpa's thinking. This is what grandma's thinking. Well, why are you making me watch this? Just watch it with me. Come here, sit down, watch this, and control it. Move it. Move the dial up and down, and be able to watch this, and really kind of pause it. You don't need to be hearing me all the time. Just enough to kind of say, so what do you think about that? Get them thinking about it. Get them talking about it, and you think about it, and you talk about it, so you have something to share. These are great tools if you use them. If you use them. All right. Have a great rest of your week. Weekend's almost here. Tomorrow's Friday, and we'll see you next Thursday. Be blessed.